Good morning. Today we are going to focus on comparing numbers. So before we get to actually comparing, we need to talk about some symbols. So when we're comparing numbers, we have to read symbols to be able to actually say the number sentence correctly. So we have less than, more than, and equal to. And something I tell my kiddos to help them remember which direction it should go is based on the bigger number. So we call this the alligator mouth. And if we have the alligator is hungry, so he wants to eat the bigger meal. So the open mouth has to be towards the bigger number. All right, let's do a couple of practice problems. Let's say I want to compare 5 and 32 thousandths and 5 and 23 thousandths. So I purposely did these numbers in the opposite place value to be able to show you the difference between the order. So the first thing I need to do is to line up my decimals. So I'm going to take my first number, the 5 and 32 hundredths, and then I'm going to line up my place values with the second number. So the decimal goes first. Well, I have a 5 before the decimal, so I use that decimal as my point of origin. And then I fill in the rest of my numbers. When we're comparing numbers, we always start with the largest place value. And in this case, the largest place value is the ones place. So I look at the ones place and I have a 5 in each number. So that doesn't actually help me because those numbers are equal to each other. So then I go to the next place and I have a 3 and a 2. Well, I know that 3 is greater than 2. Okay. And because I had the different digits in this place, in the tens place, I don't need to go any further because this automatically tells me that 5 and 32 hundredths is greater than 5 and 23 hundredths. So I'm going to rewrite my number sentence as 5 and 32 hundredths, and I have the alligator mouth open to the bigger number, is greater than 5 and 23 hundredths. Now, another problem that we usually have is when we have a different amount of digits in the number. So let's say I just have 9 and 7/10, and I'm comparing it to 9 and 68 hundredths. Okay, a lot of times kids will think because this number has more digits in it, then it must be the bigger number. But that's not actually the case. So I'm going to do the work to show and prove which one is the bigger number. So I write down my 9 and 7/10. And then I'm going to line up my place values where the 9 is in the ones place. I put my decimal down, which I should have done first. And write out my number. Now I can always add a 0 here as a placeholder at the end because it doesn't change the value. It's still 9 and 7/10. I create my chart, which is something you can do if you're having a hard time separating. I cover up everything with the largest place value, which is still the ones place. So I have 9 and a 9. Well, that tells me that they're the same, so that doesn't really help me. So I go to the next place and I have a 7 and a 6. Well, 7 is greater than 6, so I know that 9 and 7/10 is greater than 9 and 68 hundredths. Plus, when I add my 0 as my placeholder, I can look and I can see that 70 is greater than 68. All right, let's do one. Let's say I want to do 43 and 2/10, and I'm comparing it to 9 and 76 hundredths. Okay, this is where it gets really important to make sure that I'm lining up my places. So I'm going to write down my first number, 43 and 2/10. And then I'm going to use my decimal as my point of origin. I have a 9 in the ones place and a 7 in the tenths. And then I scoot over for my 6 in the hundredths. I use a 0 as my placeholder. 0 is my placeholder here. So I know that all my places are covered. Create my chart. Cover up everything with the largest place value. Well, in my largest place value, I have a 4 and a 0. Well, 4 is greater than 0. So that automatically tells me that 43 and 20 hundredths, or 43 and 2/10, is greater than 9 and 76 hundredths. So I'll have you write it like this. And that gives me the number sentence, 43 and 2/10 is greater than 9 and 76 hundredths. All right, let's see a less than. Let's say I wanted to just use these same numbers, but let's flip them. And I'm comparing 9 and 76 hundredths to 43 and 2/10. I'm still lining up my place values. I start with the first number first, 9 and 76 hundredths. I line up my decimals. I have 43 before it and 2/10 after. Okay, so I use my zeros as placeholders. And now I can start comparing. I cover up everything but the largest place value. Well, in my largest place value, I have that 0 is less than 4. So I don't need to go any further because I know that 9 and 76 hundredths is less than 43 and 2/10. All right, everyone, that's all for me today. If you have any other questions or any numbers you would like to see, please let me know and I'll be happy to do that for you. Thank you. Have a great day.